Hello, welcome to your next photography assignment. This unit is called Get Close. So the objective for this presentation is you'll be able to explain the compositional technique Get Close. And the first few units of this course will be about different ways of taking great photographs compositionally. And then also, of course, we want you to understand the corresponding photo assignment. So first of all, go ahead and open up your guided notes. So if you're in Google Classroom, here we are for Get Close, you opened up the introduction, right? So right next to it, you should see a Get Close guided notes. When you open that up, it looks like this, and it's probably a good idea to read the questions so you know what to pay attention to when you're watching this presentation, and you can pause along the way and answer them as you go if you would like. All right, so let's get started here. So what is composition anyway? Composition is the way that components in a photo are arranged to make a compelling and visually pleasing images. What are you putting into that viewfinder? Where are you arranging the subject matter? Where are the edges? All of those contribute to a successful composition. So one thing about composition is that it really highlights the elements and principles of design. And we're going to be talking about these over and over again this year. So let's just take a look at them right now. We won't go into much detail, but I want you to start to be familiar with them. And some of them you're going to know, and some of them you might not, and we'll be talking about them later. So the elements of design are line, shape, form, color, value, texture, and space. And the principles of design are balance, movement, rhythm, contrast, emphasis, pattern, and unity. So when I look at this photographs of this tree by Michael Kenna, I'm noticing that I would say it has a lot of space, right? There's this negative space around the tree. That's one way to describe it using the elements and principles of design. I could talk about the strong line, how the tree trunk and branches make some very interesting line. I could talk about emphasis, meaning when I look at this photo, the strong emphasis is the tree. When I look at it, I know exactly the subject matter. It is a tree. So that's an example. So now you're going to have a turn. So this photograph called Free Soul by Michael Aboya. What I'd like you to do is to write a short, vivid description of this photo using some of those elements and principles of design, kind of like I just did in the other slide of the picture of the tree. So here are the elements and principles of design. You can kind of look through them and then look at the photo and see which ones you think match. And it might be a good idea to pause right here, pause the video now, go over to your guided notes and write in that description. Let me know if you need help. All right, so get close. It's one of the most important compositional techniques. You don't necessarily need to show the whole scene to tell an interesting story. In fact, sometimes really zooming in on just the right subject, in just the right arrangement, can create an incredibly successful photo. So there's 5 different specific techniques to try, and that I'd like you to try when you start taking your photos. Focus attention. Show just what you think is important, and you can use that with your focus on your camera. You can get in close, physically with your body, get in close to objects and hit the focus button like we've talked about in class, and really make sure that the main subject of your photo is in focus, and that will let the viewer see what you are looking at and bring attention to it and create an interesting composition. The next technique to try is to eliminate distractions. So we have 2 photographs here of deer. The first photo is full of ugly distractions, right? I see hotel and car, and I don't really know what this photo is about. I mean, I definitely see the deer there, of course, but it's really not telling me what you as a photographer are focused on, what you are interested in, and really what kind of a photograph you want to create. But the second photo clearly shows what the photographer wants the viewer to see. I know exactly what the subject matter is, that adorable deer with its fuzzy antlers, but I would not have really focused on that without the photographer getting in close and eliminating those distractions. Fill the frame is your next technique, and that is getting close enough so that you don't see anything else in the frame. And this is a wonderful pattern, right? We have the Eiffel Tower little toys or objects, and there's so many of them. That's all we see in a frame. Some ways that you can do this on your own is maybe leaves on the ground or fruit or vegetables in a grocery store. Anytime you see a lot of something repeated over and over again, plus it just creates this wonderful pattern that can create a interesting photograph. So fill that frame with nothing but your subject. By doing this, by getting in close, and eliminating all those distracting objects, you make details more visible because you're physically closer to the object, and the camera can see, like in this photograph, that texture of the wood, the texture of the rose petals. So find an object that has interesting texture and get close to it so we can see those interesting details. So this clearly shows textures and patterns on small objects, so give that a try. One note, though, to pay attention to be careful of, is sometimes when you get too close to an object with your camera, the camera cannot focus. So if you're noticing that, like, for example, if you're taking a picture of a flower or a rose like this, if you get so close that the camera can't focus and it's blurry, you need to back up a little bit and maybe zoom in or maybe not, but make sure it's super important that the photograph is in focus. Now, the fifth technique is crop by zooming in, using the camera's zoom. If you're using a phone, oftentimes you can use an optical zoom. That's the best way, clicking on the little 1x, 2x on the phone screen. Be a little bit careful about doing the finger pinch zooming in just because the quality gets bad. So keep an eye on that. If you have a DSLR, the zoom does not hurt the photo quality at all. So use that zoom. So here's an example. So here's the original photo. It's interesting. I think it's a pretty great photo, but the legs of the piano bench, the man there, that adds visual complexity. Is it too much? The molding on the ceiling at the top of the photograph is distracting. Does the photo really need it? So by using your zoom on your camera and zooming into just the interesting parts, sometimes it can simplify the photograph and really emphasize the strong shapes in the photograph. So let's take a look. So here's an example of cropping by zooming in, or cropping in Photoshop itself, right? Cropping out those distracting images to really zoom in on just what you want to show. So here is your assignment. You are going to take 10 or up to 20 or more photographs. Look around your environment for interesting subjects. You can take pictures of whatever you'd like. Pets, nature in your yard, objects in your home, people, whatever you want, but make sure that you're getting in close, right? Find an object that has interesting texture and get really close to it. Try some zooming in. Whatever it is, really focus on what the subject matter is and eliminate all those distracting elements. Do try to find good lighting. Outside tends to be pretty good lighting, and indoor is okay too, as long as you're close to a sliding glass door, a nice big window. Usually at nighttime in your bedroom, usually the light isn't that great. So stay away from difficult lighting situations for now. And then you will be turning in those photographs into Google Classroom, or you may raise your hand and after you've taken all of your photographs and show them to me on your phone, into Google Drive and Google Photos, multiple ways, but somehow you either need to turn those photos in or show me that you've taken them. So remember, a must do is 10 photos for a B, 15 is a should do for an A-, and 20 or more is an aspire to do for an A. And I've had students take literally hundreds of photos for each assignment. It kind of depends on how excited you are about it and what you'd like to do. So then you're going to look through all the photos you have taken and choose the one with the strongest composition that clearly meets the project criteria. So I should be able to look at the photo and see that you got in close in some way. And then you will edit that photo, making sure that the levels are good, maybe adjust the exposure, saturation, cropping if necessary, And you could even consider making creative edits if you want to turn it black and white, tone it, something like that. That's okay too. And then you'll just turn in that best photo into Google Classroom. All right, so go ahead and fill out your guided notes here. And if you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to ask. Thanks.